Hey guys, welcome to day 30 of the August Spark Change Challenge. And today's domain is Kindness and Nurturance. Tomorrow we will wrap up with spontaneity and entertainment, and then there'll be a final live stream on Friday afternoon, evening, where I try and sum up what we've talked about over this last month and share with you a little bit about how I'm putting some of this stuff into practice in a fairly big way. Um, hey, Caroline, thank you for joining live. Um, so, tonight's session, in our final dive into kindness and nurturance, I thought I really want to put the challenge back onto you guys. I want to see what, if anything, we've taken away from this month of questioning and exploring and looking at self-care in a slightly different way, specifically in the realm of kindness tonight. So after this live stream, I'm going to set up a very short survey asking a couple of questions about the cases that I'm going to discuss tonight. And I want to ask you guys, I would really love some of you to respond to the survey with what your automatic response to this vignette would have been a month ago versus what is your automatic response to this vignette now. There'll be multiple choice questions. They'll be quite straightforward. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to do it, but I would just love to get some feedback and some ideas on if some of this stuff has filtered through and had an influence on how you're seeing this, because it definitely has on me, as evidenced today with these cases that I'm going to discuss. Everything's been twisted around and switched around a little bit, and so that everything's de-identified. But I think hopefully it still captures the gist of what I'm trying to get across here. So for those who don't know, I'm a board approved supervisor. I supervise people going through for general registration, doing well, I used to have some on the 4+2, doing the 5+1. I also supervise people for the clinical registrar program, and I do peer supervision as well, particularly on like animal assisted therapy, neurodevelopmental trauma, and self care. So today was a supervision day. I had a full day, full docket, and these are just some of the cases that people brought to supervision today. Again, I have switched this up a little bit, so it shouldn't be, well, if you're my supervisee, you're going to know who I'm talking about, but other than that, I think we're okay. So there was the registered psychologist who didn't want to call in sick because they have a highly avoidant client who kept cancelling and rescheduling appointments. The client had finally confirmed and was booked in, and then the clinician wakes up sick and is afraid to cancel because they don't want to have to cancel on this highly avoidant client and just get back into that rescheduling and avoiding and all of that sort of stuff. There's the clinician who had um, was involved in a court case with one of her clients, and ended up being cross-examined by her client's schizophrenic mother. There was the provisional psychologist who was handed a teenage client with multiple diagnoses, autism, ADHD, complex PTSD, BPD, ODD, like every letter of the alphabet you can think of, and then asked after the second session why they weren't seeing any improvement or treatment effects or changes. There was the clinician dealing with an APRA complaint from a client with diagnosed delusional disorder. She wasn't even the clinician who diagnosed the delusional disorder, but there is very well documented in a history of this client having delusional disorder, and yet the wheels of the APRA complaint are still in motion. There was the clinician questioning a client that they've been seeing who they're noticing is having a lot of irritability as part of their diagnoses and presentation, and actually found herself questioning in the last session, do I treat this person knowing that it might actually mean that I end up the target of the rage and the anger, or do I just keep pussyfooting around and holding until I can move him along? Yes, Caroline has said clinical work is challenging, eh? Yes, clinical work is insane. The stuff that we do, and this is one day. This is one day with a bunch of therapists as examples, and this wasn't even a rough day. This wasn't even like, some of well, we all know what a rough day looks like. This was just a normal day. But the thing that kept buzzing around in my head today after all of this work on the kindness and nurturance domain is, who are we giving that kindness to? Who are we showing that kindness to do when we make these decisions, when we decide to go to work or not go to work when we're sick, when we decide to uh, pursue a tricky treatment plan with someone who may or may not end up making a complaint against us, um, a completely fictitious complaint. Do we see these complex clients knowing that they're coming off often from very, very complex backgrounds, with people who don't have those expectations or don't have reasonable expectations for what therapy could actually look like, and the sort of timeline we're looking at to see and create change, or have no interest or responsibility or accountability for being an active part of their own change. All of these questions, I'm finding my answers to some of these questions have changed a lot in the last month. Or not even changed. I suppose there'd always been a part of me that would have answered those questions in a way that was supportive of therapists, but it's probably not always the way I would have gone. And no, I know it's not always the way I would have gone. I know I have shown up to appointments when I've been sick. I made the terrible decision once to go into work when I was particularly nauseated, and I just made it outside the door. I had to get up in the middle of a session, grab the waste bin, and I just made it outside the door before throwing up into the waste bin. And the sad thing is, I'm not even alone on that one. I've told that story to a few. I've never told it like publicly before, but I've told that to a few people before, and they're just like, oh yeah, yeah, oh, when I was pregnant I did that, or I was really sick, or I was. What are we doing? Just what are we doing? What are we telling our brains and ourself about our worth and where we stand in this clinical picture? But what are we telling the clients as well about being kind to yourself, about how much confidence we have in their ability to cope with normal day-to-day disruptions, with a conversation? If you're seriously questioning, um if I what's a good example? If I use the word minimal improvement or minimal progress versus no progress, what does that mean, and how would that feel for the client? And I think we just get caught up so much in trying to protect and be kind to the client, when what we're actually doing is ending up, we end up, because they're not taking good care of themselves, we try and take care of them for us. They're not showing kindness to themselves in a lot of situations, so we end up trying to show that kindness to them. But we just then perpetuate the same patterns. We perpetuate the patterns that created that problem in the first place, and we're perpetuating it within ourselves as well. So yes, my challenge to you, if you have enjoyed any of these videos, if it has made you think, if it has made you consider something from a new angle, I would very much appreciate you popping into the survey. I'll put it into the therapeutic tools of the trade group, and I'll send it out in the subscription email tonight. And just spending 5 minutes to look at some of those scenarios, which, like I said, are relatively common scenarios. Well, okay, no, being cross-examined by your client's mum who has schizophrenia and is actively unwell. Can't say that one has come up before. That one, a bit more unusual. But similar things, I've definitely had clients, and I didn't make it to the stand, but I was called in a case where the abusive partner was going to be cross-examining me on my treatment of the victim survivor in a family violence situation. Um, it's it's crazy. It's crazy what we're doing to ourselves, and yes, also what that's potentially perpetuating for the clients. But let's forget about the clients for a little while. Let's just focus on what we're doing to ourselves when this is your day. That's, if you see if you see 5 clients today and each one of them has one of those stories, where are you carrying that? What are you doing with that? What's that doing to your inner feeling of safety? My supervisee who's had the complaint, what's that doing to her chronic stress levels? What's that doing to her feelings of safety within her profession, within her personal life? Is there going to be repercussions for this? What are we doing to ourselves to do this job? Um, this is a fabulous job. I love this job, and I continue to feel incredibly privileged to be able to do it. But I think we've really got to look at the cost associated with that. In the non-sexy self-care webinar and the integrative self-care webinar, I talk about it as the cost of co-regulation. And I think it's the cost of connecting with people at their most vulnerable. It's the cost of connecting and fostering and managing a relationship that is very strange. The amount of detail that we know about our clients, the amount that we're invited into their lives, and the lack of balance with what they know about us versus what we know about them. And it's so strange, so strange. When I worked at IVF, I would be 5 minutes into meeting someone and we would be talking about timed intercourse and very intimate details of their sex life. And I would often kind of go, this is a weird job. I say that all the time. This is a really weird job. But this month in particular has really made me focus on the cost of having such a weird job, the cost of that co-regulation, of that connection, and that if we really want to do it and we really want to do it well and we really want to do it in a sustainable way, then we have to be looking at ways of offsetting that cost. We have to be looking at ways of distributing the kindness to the clients, but also to ourselves. And this is why I am reaching out to you guys to see if it's something that maybe has shifted a little bit for you as well. I would love to see that. That would be awesome. And if it hasn't, then that's just going to inspire me to keep going with my work in this path, because the more and more that I've concentrated on this over the last month, the more and more I've just thought we really need a shake-up. We really need to look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the impact that it's having on us as clinicians. Because it's an awesome job and we do great work. We just, I think, have for too long ignored the actual cost and the actual toll that takes on us. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't want you guys to do that anymore. So I'm going to post that survey in the next 15 minutes or so. Keep an eye out for it. And I'd love to hear, yeah, your gut reactions, what you think your default response would have been a month ago and what it might be now. And like I said, if it's changed, awesome. If it hasn't, then I just know I've got more work to do, which is fine because there are many more months and many more challenges ahead ready to run. Thank you very much for joining me and for watching the video. And I will see you tomorrow night for the very last domain and the very last live stream for the Spark Change August Challenge. Thanks, everyone.